If you're somebody that's ever considered getting into drawing or painting or really any other type of creative hobby, whether because you want it to be a hobby or because you want to make a career out of it at some point down the line, but you stopped yourself because you felt like you didn't start early enough, like you missed the boat and you were too old to start. Or maybe you felt like you wouldn't have the time to dedicate to practicing enough to get better at the pace that you were hoping for. Or worse, you felt like you just didn't have the talent, right? That you didn't have it in you to do that. Well, if that's you, hi, I'm Ed, and that's exactly where I was not that long ago. I am a self taught or self learned artist, if we want to be pedantic, and I didn't get into it until I was 29 years old, which I know is not that old in the grand scheme of things, but it is older than a lot of the 16-year-olds I see who are making masterpieces and who made me feel like I was definitely too old to get started. But I'm making this video because it's the video that I wish I had seen back when I had those concerns. I'm hoping that it will inspire you to cast those doubts aside because, spoiler, none of that really matters. This video is going to be a little bit more casual, but no cuts, no anything. I'm recording this and posting it up, so I apologize if I digress. I'm going to do my absolute best not to. But let's start with the question of age. Are you too old? No, that's that's really the only answer that could ever be given. You're not too old if you're 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 70. It doesn't matter how old you are as long as you can hold the brush. And even that or brush or pencil or stylus, whatever it is that you're working with. And even if you can't, there are people who are literally born without arms and paint with their mouths. I remember reading about it might have been Renoir or some other old French master who had really bad arthritis and he couldn't hold the brush in his hands anymore, and so he strapped it to his wrist and continued painting in when he was, I don't know, 90 years old or something. And so no, you're not too old. You're fine. Now I know the concern is, well, I wasted all those years not painting, so it's going to take a lot longer to catch up. And yet, I mean, I'm saying that, but that's how I felt. So I know that thought very well. But the reality is that as long as you start, you will get there. And there's a quote that says the best year to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And there's another quote that's actually the quote that got me inspired to start and that I've mentioned on this channel a few times, and that is, a year from now, you may wish you had started today. And I related to that one a little bit more because, the 20 years of the tree, that's a long time. I don't want to wait 20 years to get better at something, but 1 year, I can do that. 1 year goes by very, very fast. But either way, whichever quote you look at, the point is that as long as you start, eventually you will improve. Eventually you will look back and see that you've grown, right? It's just if you continue to tell yourself, oh, it's too late, oh, it's too late, it's too late, it will continue to get later and later, right? So, no, you are not too late. You're not too old. Just start. Just do it now. Number two is time. Now, time wasn't that much of an issue for me because I have always been a freelancer. I was doing photography at the time, still am to an extent. So I did have a decent amount of free time, but I kept hearing this concept of grinding the fundamentals and people talking about how many hours a day do you dedicate to drawing. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be drawing boxes or practicing the fundamentals for 6 hours a day. That did not sound appealing to me. But the thing is, you don't have to. In fact, I would recommend you don't, because I've seen so many people that did that, that spent so much time just practicing, practicing, practicing for hours on end every day, every week, every month, and they burnt out. And then they just didn't keep going. They stopped. Um, what I learned was that it doesn't matter how much time you put into it as long as you do it over a period of time. I went some weeks where I would paint for 2, 3 hours a day. Some days I would paint for 6 hours. And some days I would paint for 15 minutes. And in all honesty, those were most of the days. Most of the days I would paint or draw or sketch or doodle for anywhere between 15 minutes and maybe an hour, if that. I also went some weeks where I didn't paint at all. I went months during which I didn't paint at all. In fact, I went an entire 2 years without painting anything. And I mean anything. If you look at my uploads on this channel, you can see that there's a pretty big gap in them. There's an about 2+ year gap. That's why I didn't make anything. And guess what? I was still fine. When I when I got back to it, I kept going and I kept improving. Obviously, yes, if I had kept going throughout that 2 year period, I would have improved a little bit faster. But it doesn't matter. The point is, you don't need that much time. As long as you have a little bit of time that you can dedicate once a day, once every few days, once a week, it will still add up. 15 minutes in one day is not that much. 15 minutes times, a few years will add up. And speaking of which, you can check out this video. This video, I don't know where YouTube is going to put it. I made a video regarding something like this. So do watch it. I'm going to make another one um, that's even more about this particular topic and how to be able to create an art practice and a sketching practice and allow yourself to draw and doodle and paint uh, very casually and as often as you can and whenever you have like really 5 minutes to spare. um, the last but most important part is talent. I hate the word talent. Okay, maybe hate is too strong of a word, but I really am not a fan of it. And I understand that people who say, "Oh, you're so talented. I wish I had your talents." I know that they really mean you're very good at what you do. But the problem with the word talent is that it's a bit of an insidious word because it implies that you have this sort of innate ability to do something. But the thing is, most people don't have that, right? Most people aren't born knowing how to paint or how to play an instrument or how to speak multiple languages. Yeah, like, there's a small percentage of the population, people who are gifted, child prodigies, who are literally writing their first piano sonata at 4 years old. They are not what we should be striving for because most people are not like that. Most people, most artists, they just get better over time. If you look at the work of even people like John Singer Sargent, for example, who's considered one of the best painters of all time, look at his childhood drawings. They look like anybody's childhood drawings, but probably with less anime because they didn't have that at the time. Most kids these days draw, I don't know, Dragon Ball probably. Okay, that dates me a lot. Anyway, I was the one that drew Dragon Ball back in the day. The point is, even the best artists started from the bottom. That's how it goes. So um, the problem that I have with talent is that I fear a lot of people use it as an excuse to not give it a shot. They tell themselves, "Well, I just don't have the talent. It's not. I don't have it in me. It's not in my blood. So I'm never going to be able to get there." But the thing with drawing, painting, any of these things is that they are skills, right? And skills can be improved. You practice the skill and you get better at it, right? You don't go to the gym and load up 300 pounds on a barbell and expect to deadlift that on your first day. You're going to start small. You're going to start with just the barbell, and then you're going to add, two 10-pound plates, and then eventually you're going to build up to being better and better. Same goes for painting and drawing. When I first started, I was not very good. I was just about as average as you can think. I'm going to show you some of my first few paintings that I made compared to some of my current work or my more recent work. And hopefully you can tell that it's improved quite a bit. Um, the thing is, you don't think that you have to create beautiful work from the start just because you see other people's work looking beautiful. Just because you don't see their failures, it doesn't mean they don't exist. Most artists on social media, on their websites, are not going to post their bad paintings. And even if they did, the thing is that their bad paintings, their failed paintings, are going to be far beyond even your wildest dreams. I remember, like, if I look at my failed paintings from today, and I go back 6 years ago, I never would have guessed that I could ever be able to paint like that. But now I can. So when I paint worse, it feels like I'm bad. I said I wasn't going to cut, but I had forgotten something and I had to dig into my brain to remember it. And it's very important. And that is that you're going to have to be bad before you can be good. That is something that took me so long to realize, and I kept feeling like I wasn't ever going to be good as an artist because I kept making bad paintings. And again, especially in the era of social media, when we see all these beautiful pieces out there, we only see beautiful pieces. It's very rare to see bad artwork, right? But it's out there. It's usually not posted, and it's usually old enough that you just don't see it anymore, right? If an artist has been painting for 10 years, what are the odds of you seeing paintings from them from their first 3 months of creating art? It's really not going to happen. But you have to be bad in order to be good. This quote from Adventure Time.
Dude, sucking at something is the first step towards being sort of good at something.
And I think it perfectly encapsulates that. You have to be a little bit bad to become good, because being bad means that you're pushing out of your comfort zone. It means that you are experimenting with something you're not comfortable with. And that will continue to happen even as you get better. Even like artists who are far better than me still deal with that, because sometimes they'll try new techniques, they'll try new approaches, and they're not familiar with them. They're experimenting with something new, and they are going to feel like they're struggling, they're making bad work. Again, from the perspective of everybody else, they're going to be fantastic. But from their perspective, because they are more advanced, they know what problem their work has, they can tell that it's not as good, right? So, and the thing is, if you are not struggling, if you're not making bad art, it probably means that you're stagnating, that you're not actually trying to improve, because you're just sticking with your comfort zone. You're sticking with what you know already works for you. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you're not pushing further. So this is really it. This video was just about mindset, I suppose. I wasn't going to share any practical advice, but if you do want a video that's more about that, like I said, I have a couple of ideas for videos on how to practice more efficiently, faster, more casually whenever you have time. So I'm going to make that. But if you have any questions, any things that you struggle with, do let me know in the comments, because I'm going to be making more content for this channel and I need more ideas. I hope this was interesting, useful, inspiring. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.